Hello everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the Book Refuge and welcome to another recommendations video. I'm so excited to make this video today because I have been on the hunt for these specific kinds of recommendations. I have done forced proximity before. I will link that video up here, and there are many different kinds of forced proximity. There are many different reasons that we get stuck together. There's storms, there are, wow, I just forgot everything. There are shipwrecks, there are only one bed, there are traveling, like there are so many different reasons why we get stuck together. But specifically for this video, I want to touch on forced proximity that is in the end of the world or a survival situation, okay? So some of these books, specifically like one of them, I've spoken about in that forced proximity that I did before because I just did a general forced proximity book recommendation. But for this one, I wanted to do like, apocalypse, shipwrecks, plane crashes, like disease, like those kind of books, because they just have a different level of stakes than, like a historical romance where we are sharing a carriage or then there's only one bed at a, inn or something. Because that's usually like an isolated event within the story, or else it's like a road trip or something like that. And I don't know, there's just something that really works for me. What I was finding, I'm just saying this as kind of a general thing as well. As always, being a romance reader, there's something to say about when we know that they're going to live, when we know that it's a romance, and when we know that nothing is going to be as bad as we think it is by the end of the book. That's really what my motivation is like for these recommendations, because there's some of these that are very intense where you just don't know how they're going to live. And then there's some of them where like we're just kind of riding it out together until the end. But I wanted the ones that had high stakes but are still really romantic, okay? Because I found some really spicy ones. So we're going to go through these. I have a lot of recommendations for these, so I'm going to try not to drone on too much. There is specifically a couple of these that are like my faves right now, so I might talk more in depth about those. But we're going to dive in. The first ones I'm going to recommend, I think everyone will expect me to recommend, but maybe you won't, and I just want to share them anyway. And it's the Survival Instinct series by Adrienne Anders. Currently, there's 2 books out in this series. Whiteout, which came out last year, is in the Antarctica. Our heroine is Angel Smith, who is a cook at this research center. Our hero is Ford Cooper, who is like a glaciologist scientist there, and everyone's leaving to winterize. Like only him and like one other person stay there for the winterization. They get attacked. There's someone there trying to steal information, and they end up stuck there. And they need to try to make it from this station to another station to escape, or they might die. They literally need to travel across the Antarctic ice with only like a tent and each other to get to safety. So this one, the danger, not much opportunity for danger banging. Danger banging is a term where we bang when it's scary and we might die, but we do it anyway. Not a lot of opportunity for that in this one just because of the situation, but I really enjoyed this. The audiobook especially was really great. Now, I actually got to read Uncharted as an arc. I actually had requested this arc, and when I got it, I was like, oh shit, I haven't read the first one. And so then I did that. I want this right. But I loved this one even more. This one is also in a cold place, but it's in Alaska and it's not as cold. So we're able to get a little bit more frisky in this one. This one is about Leo Eddowes, who is our heroine. I believe she is African-American because I'm pretty sure this is an interracial couple. And our hero is Elias Thorne, who is hiding up in Alaska because he is on the most wanted list, kind of. And our heroine, who gets sent there to kind of warn him about something. But the thing is, she gets there almost too late. There's already bad guys coming after them. So she literally crash lands onto the pond near his home, and him and his dog and her end up needing to go on the run to try to get to safety before these men kill them. So I really liked this one so much. I gave this one 5 stars. I loved it a lot. Just because like the hero who's been on his own for so long, like he falls so hard for this woman and he's really in awe of how strong she is. This is also one where like she's injured for their trip because of the plane crash she was in. So they're very high stakes to this, because this is one where the implications of the information that he's hiding and the things that are happening behind the scenes, like, would have effects on the world as a whole. So, you know, it's got a little bit of that like Jason Bourne feel, or, you know, one of those as well as Danger Bang. So it's great. Then I want to talk about A Wilderness Within by Emma Castle. This book is, it's strange because this is book 2 in a series. When you look it up, it's going to say that it's book 2 in the Ordinary Heroes series, but the first book and this book are not connected at all. Like there's nothing that connects them. It's more of the archetype she's writing that is what connects it together. Okay, so you can absolutely read this as a standalone. This book though is going to blow your mind, okay, because this book came out in the summer of 2019, like June of 2019, and it accurately predicts so much of our pandemic that it's terrifying. Like Emma Castle, she did her research about what it would look like if it happened, and it's terrifying. So imagine if COVID was more like deadly than it is. Like as in 9 out of 10 die instead of, you know, whatever the actual statistic is. I'm not going to talk about that stuff and get things happening on my channel. I'm just saying, imagine if 9 out of 10 people died instead. Our hero's name is Lincoln. He has been in the bunker with the acting president of the United States until he got the disease, and Lincoln had to put him out of his misery. And now he doesn't know what he's living for. So he leaves the bunker. He's not sure where he's going. And he sees our heroine, Caroline, who is trying to make it to her family. And he comes upon her and he decides that he wants to help her. So he approaches her. She tries to run. She ends up falling down and hurting herself. He takes her. He kind of sort of kidnaps her, but not in a bad way. And he tells her, he's like, I'm not going to do anything you don't want to, but I'm paraphrasing. He's like, I'm a big, strong man. I will hunt for you, take care of you. You're going to want to fuck me eventually. I'm just saying, I'm not going to rub this in your face when you want to fuck me later, but you're going to want to. He's really not an asshole though. He's amazing. But he says that to her and she's like, I'm never going to sleep with you. And he's like, I'm not going to force you. We're going to work together, but you're going to want to sleep with me. And I mean, it does happen. So this book, actually, I called it a pandemic fairy tale, minus the fact that 90% of the world died in this. But this one is about putting it back together. This isn't just about us trying to survive and like make do with what we have. This is about going from having everything to having nothing to trying to make the world come back again. So this was very hopeful. And though the beginning half of this book is probably going to scare the shit out of you because it's going to remind you of what we've been through or not, that stuff doesn't scare me. It doesn't scare me. It just doesn't. And this book, really worked for me also because our hero, again, very protective. And this is a book where like things go mostly right most of the time. You know, like it's a best case scenario type of book. And I really loved their relationship a lot. So I enjoyed this one. Then I real quick will just say Transcendence by Shay Savage. This is on a lot of survival lists that you might see. This is actually kind of a time travel story. This is about a caveman named Ed, and our heroine, whose name is Beth, but he calls her Be, who we don't know how, because this is all from the hero's point of view. She falls back in time. I'll actually show you the back of this. It's crazy too. And she doesn't know how this happened. And I'm putting this in a survival situation because it literally is day to day for this couple. And the way that our hero is so despondent, he's on his own, he's lost his group due to a fire that happened, and he really doesn't have the will to live. And then our heroine, who is just thrust back in time, literally falls into one of his like animal traps, and he realizes that she's his woman, and he's so sweet, and I love it so much. But I'll just mention this one real quick. Ouch. I also want to mention Shay Savage has many survival books. One of them that is, because I know everyone's going to say this book to me, so I have to mention it. Surviving Rayne is on my TBR for November. I'm 1000% going to read it. I believe this is like a shipwreck survival story. And then I'm currently reading Outnumbered by Shay Savage, which I'm not done with, so I didn't officially put it in this video, but this is one of a guy who he lives in the wilderness and this girl kind of falls into his lap, and there's something very peculiar about her that they discover while he's living with her in his cabin. So I just wanted to put those out there because I have a feeling people will mention them. I am in the process of them. Moving along, I discovered Wilde by Adrienne Wilde. This is a male-male survival romance. This one is a plane crash romance. We have a hero who he is a like model, and he's traveling with his cheating boyfriend and like a film crew and like photographers and stuff, and I'm not quite sure where they're going. I can't remember, but they end up crashing over, I can't remember if it's Canada or Alaska, whatever, it's cold, and our hero is the only survivor, and he awakens to a bear going through the corpses of his friends and co-workers and eating them. And then he gets pulled from the wreckage by this big bear of a man who definitely is a bear, and I mean that in the way that I'm saying it as well, who rescues him and brings him back to a cabin that's nearby. It's not actually his cabin because he doesn't even live in a cabin. He literally lives in the woods, taking care of himself that way. And he's done it for 10 years. Our hero who's in the plane crash, he has a broken leg, he has broken ribs, he has severe injuries, and our bearish hero has to take care of him through the winter because they can't even try to go for help until the spring. And this is a case of they happen to both share the same sexual proclivities together and it's really beautiful. This relationship is really beautiful, but it has this tension over it for the fact that our model hero is gonna want to go back to civilization and our bear hero cannot for certain reasons. Like there's a reason why he's been hiding in the wilderness for 10 years. I love this one a lot. This one seriously is a fight almost every day. Like just because they have a cabin does not mean that they're safe, does not mean that animals won't try to get them, does not mean that it can't all fall apart very quickly with one wrong decision. So this book kept me on the edge of my seat the whole way through and I loved it. I adored it. I loved it so much. Then the other one that I super loved was Last Light by Claire Kent. I've mentioned this on my Instagram that to me this was Daryl Dixon and Beth Green fan fiction. It's not. I just keep saying that because that's who it reminded me of. But if you like that couple from The Walking Dead who wasn't a couple, whatever disclaimers I have to say, the vibes that I got was a grumpy, serious hero who has nothing else to really live for in an apocalypse situation, and our heroine who is, they both are from the same town. They like knew who each other was. He had a wife who's now an ex-wife, and he had a daughter who has recently died. She had a grandmother who had recently died, and so they were both in the same town, and they're trying to make it together to where their town had migrated to. And in doing that, they need to try to survive survivors and the elements, and they decide to be kind of like survivors with benefits. And our hero is so gruff and grumpy and protective and so kind and like shy and like so doesn't want to do anything to hurt our heroine, and she's just like in love with him, and it's very obvious to us that he is obsessed with her, but because he's so gruff and like this, like she can't see that really he just wants to like wrap her up and love her forever. Like so good. Absolutely love this book so much. Then by this author, I also want to mention Hold and Fall. Now these are books 1 and 3 in her Hold series. So the reason why Hold is in here, this is actually a prison romance, but it is a survival romance because our heroine gets thrown into this multi-sex prison and she must find the strongest prisoner and offer herself in order to have protection. So she basically becomes his prison bitch, and in the term, like, actually, to survive. But our hero, he has a plan to escape, and her hope is that she will make him care for her enough that he will take her with him when he goes. And then fall in this series, so this is actually like a space series. So there's different planets that have these things. And our heroine in this one, she pisses off the wrong people and she gets dropped onto a prehistoric planet, which is a caveman planet. And the same kind of situation goes where she needs to find the strongest Neanderthal and make him her mate so she can have food and clothing and all these things. And it's another gruff but sweet hero. He reminds me of Ed quite a bit, except he's a little bit smarter than Ed. Poor Ed, just his brain isn't quite developed enough. Then I recently read Alaska Wilde by Helen Newbury. This just came out, actually. This is about a heroine who is an FBI agent, and she ends up in a plane crash with our hero who he's been on the run from a court-martial where he was going to have to answer for some things that happened that he may or may not have been a part of. And they're in a plane crash together and need to survive the elements as well as other people who are on the plane with them who don't want them to survive. Okay, that's a good way to explain that one. Then randomly, I'm throwing this one in there, is Gilded Cage by Nicole Fox. I know, this is actually a mafia romance. It's the first half in a duet by Nicole Fox. And this is an arranged marriage between these two. And at a certain point in the book, they end up on the run for their lives and they end up having to live in a cabin and take care of themselves. And I just wanted to throw this in there because maybe you don't want to read like an end of the world book or whatever, but I really enjoyed this duet and this book was fascinating. And I loved that it had mafia and this survival situation in my book. So I just wanted to throw this one in there. Still Beating by Jennifer Hartmann. This book I consider a survival story for sure, about the before, during, and after. This is about a woman and her sister's fiance who get kidnapped together by a serial killer who chains them in a basement and forces them to do sexual things together over an extended period of time. And then we find out what happens afterwards. I really wanted to put this into a survival story just because so much of what they go through together is survival, but it's unlike kind of any of the other books I'm recommending. Then I would be completely remiss and a big fibber if I didn't mention The Wilde by K Webster. Yes, this is like the third book I'm mentioning this as Wilde. This is an extremely taboo novel. If you don't know already, it is about this family who moves to the wilderness. Sorry, the light is not going to like this one. And then the mother dies in an accident that happens with their RV, and this father and daughter end up living together in the wilderness, and there is sex that happens between them. If you know the story of this book, you know, but there's a lot of survival that happens in here. This is, look up all the trigger warnings, but I freaking love this book and the book that comes after it, The Wilde and the Free. I actually ordered a special edition bind up that I'm still waiting for it to show up. That is so gorgeous. I'm going to display it on one of my shelves. So, had to put this in here. And then to end on kind of a happier note for a survival book, I want to mention Beyond the Sea by Kiera Andrews. Kiera Andrews writes pretty much exclusively gay romance, and this one, she writes it in like all different time periods and situations and all these things. And this one is actually two straight men who are in a plane crash together, and they end up on an island, and they are kind of gay for the stay, and also maybe they want to be together for real afterwards. So this one, I called it fun just because even when Kiera Andrews' books deal with really serious situations, they have a more light-hearted feel to them. And this one is just really sweet because neither one of them has ever slept with a man before. They're stuck on this island together, and they start to have feelings that kind of come from the forced proximity of this person being the only one by them. And it kind of starts with just like them like jacking off by each other and turning into helping each other and turning into more from there. So I don't know, I really like this. I like a lot of Kiera Andrews books. So anyway, there you go. Those are some survival and end of the world forced proximity recommendations for you. Please let me know your favorites. I do have quite a few on a list still that I'm working from, but I'd love to know what yours are. There's also some that I've read, but I don't like recommend them for this video, which you can check out my weekly wrap-ups to see what other forced proximity books that I've been reading lately if you want to. But anyway, thank you so much for watching. I put up new videos 3 to 4 times a week. Make sure you subscribe to the channels and hit that bell to be notified when I upload. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Bye.